Manchester United are expected to make a formal offer to RB Leipzig for their striker Benjamin Šeško. Hi, good evening. Welcome along to the Transfer Show as United look to add forward number 3 this summer. So what does that mean for Rasmus Højlund? Well, Dharmesh Sheth and James Savundra are here to answer the questions tonight. Right, loads to get into. Dharmesh, Benjamin Šeško, right? Man in demand. What's the latest development on him?
Yeah, this one looks like it is developing. Something's going to have to come to a head sooner rather than later with this one, you would think. Manchester United now expected to make a formal offer to RB Leipzig for their striker, Benjamin Šeško. They have been in talks, as we have been reporting on Sky Sports News, over what they would be prepared to pay for Benjamin Šeško. Remember, Newcastle United, they're in ongoing talks with RB Leipzig over the structure of their deal because they've already made an offer. They were the ones who made the first move. That deal was worth around £69.8 million all in, including performance-related add-ons. It should be said from the player's perspective, he hasn't made a decision yet. He's open to both projects, but one source, and I should reiterate this, only one source has told Sky Sports News that he's leaning towards Manchester United. That is if they can agree a deal, because it will all be a moot point if there's no agreement with either club, or if there's only agreement with one club, then RB Leipzig will clearly deal with that club. United's pursuit of Šeško, though, it could have ramifications, not least on one of their current strikers who, during the US tour, started a couple of games, was on the bench the other night, Rasmus Højlund.
And after that game against Bournemouth, he spoke to the media. He went out of his way to speak to the media in the mix zone, Rasmus Højlund, after scoring against Bournemouth. And he said he wants to stay and fight for his place. Ruben Amorim, speaking ahead of that match, said he's really happy with Rasmus Højlund, but he doesn't know what's going to happen in this transfer window. We understand, though, that Manchester United are willing to listen to suitable offers for Rasmus Højlund in this transfer window. We know that Manchester United are prioritising sales in this transfer window. They can sign Benjamin Šeško without making sales, but then they'd need to make sales after bringing him into the football club. So for Rasmus Højlund, let's bear in mind he's had 2 difficult years at United. United aren't in Europe next season. There are going to be very limited options. If they sign another number 9, 2 number 9s, there's not going to be a lot of football there, especially when you consider the likes of Matheus Cunha, Bryan Mbeumo can play up front as well. If United do sign Šeško, it does feel like Rasmus Højlund's days are potentially numbered at the football club, which will be a disappointment for him because he signed for £72 million. It'll be a disappointment for the club as well because they're likely to make a loss on him. He signed a 5-year contract after that £72 million deal was signed with Atlanta. It means his book value is currently around £43 million. It's been reported elsewhere United would look for at least £30 million to sign him. So it looks like if they're to let him go, it would come at a loss.
One thing I would say quickly, Mike, on Rasmus Højlund is, in defence of him, in one way, when he joined the club, he was slightly injured. He didn't have a pre-season in his first season when he joined. I think his debut was against Arsenal. He came off the bench at the Emirates and he looked pretty dangerous. His second season, he was actually looking really, really sharp in pre-season until he picked up quite a bad hamstring injury, which meant he missed the rest of pre-season and again was playing catch-up at the start of last season and then rejoined later on. This time, when there's all this talk about Rasmus Højlund potentially going and Manchester United potentially considering suitable offers, he's had a good pre-season and he's looked pretty sharp. And even Ruben Amorim has said he's starting to learn what I want from him and he's been really, really good in these games.
Struggled at the end of last season, though, didn't he? Really struggled. A quick line that you said, that if they could bring in someone like Šeško, let's say Šeško, but they don't have to sell beforehand. But if they do that, aren't they just alerting any other club that they can get Man United players on the cheap?
I think that Manchester United are aware that the clubs are aware of this situation already because it's clear, despite the fact Ruben Amorim said that these players, and there's 4 of them right now who aren't training with the first team, aren't in the US with the squad, that they are surplus to requirements and the club and the players actively looking to move away. So yes, it does somehow make their situation from a negotiating point of view more difficult, but if it means they can get in Benjamin Šeško for the start of the season, it means they take a slight hit on the fee they're going to get for the likes of Jadon Sancho, Alejandro Garnacho, Anthony Tyrell Malacia. Those are 4 players we know are definitely looking for moves away. Rasmus Højlund potentially one as well. I do understand where you're coming from, but for United, it makes more sense to try and bring in this player now so he can have a little bit of a pre-season, train with the first team to ideally be in that matchday squad for that first game against Arsenal on the Super Sunday.
Yeah,
I wonder whether United are just trying to do a reset now, because are they willing to start taking hits on players? I can compare it to maybe if you look at when Mikel Arteta took over at Arsenal. They were not in a good way. I think his first season they finished 8th. They didn't make the Champions League in his second season. But they made a decision as a football club that some of the players that were no longer going to be part of Mikel Arteta and Arsenal's future, however much they could have got for them, they just said, right, sometimes it's going to be a mutual termination of a contract.
Yeah.
Sometimes we're going to have to take much, much less than what we wanted for them and probably what their market value is, but just so that they can move on. Are Manchester United thinking like that?
Yeah, we'll discuss more of that at 7 o'clock in the hour-long transfer show. I want to talk...
Manchester United have officially entered into formal discussions with RB Leipzig over a potential deal for Benjamin Iko, making him their top striker target this summer. While Newcastle made the first move, putting forward a €75 million, around £65.5 million, offer plus €5 million in add-ons, United struck back by engaging directly with Leipzig and talking numbers structure. Sources say United are preparing a structured approach worth closer to €84 million, including bonuses to edge ahead in the bidding. The key selling point? Iko reportedly prefers Old Trafford, even without Champions League football, leaning towards United over Newcastle or other options. Recruitment director Christopher Vivell, who previously worked with him at the Red Bull network, is leading the negotiations and bringing a trusted connection to the table. For United, Iko represents the kind of elite striker they've been missing. RB Leipzig, however, remain firm on their valuation, insisting on a €75 ATM base fee plus a sell-on clause, so negotiations are far from straightforward. From where I'm standing, this is one of the most crucial transfer battles of the window. United have already reinforced with Mbeumo and Cunha, but Iko would be the natural focal point they desperately need. Their advantage lies in relationships and the striker's preference, but Newcastle's bid was strong and includes Champions League football, a real lure. If United can get the structure right, this could be a defining move for their rebuild under Amorim. The coming days will be decisive.